morning and welcome to this special Island Stat Sports Talk. I'm your host, Earl Based, and joining me is the senior men's national coach, Michael Findlay. First of all, season's greetings and welcome, Mr. Findlay.
Great to see you, Earl, and all the best. The holiday seasons as it comes upon us to everybody in Bermuda.
Yes. Well, we wanted to get an opportunity to talk to you about the past campaign, obviously, new waters for Bermuda at that level. Can you just give us an overall summary now that you've had a chance to reflect on it and just go through the whole in your mind? Can you just give us a summary on those matches, those 6 matches?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you start at the top of the thought process, the initial thoughts are always for disappointment. That's how I think professional people act, and certainly in sport, from a results point of view, you look directly at that, and there's no doubt you have to be disappointed, and I think we all were, in the sense that we didn't reach that ultimate goal that we were all looking for, which was qualifying Bermuda for a World Cup for its first time in its history. So it takes a little while to reassess and really consider exactly where we were, and once you do that and you start looking at the things that you probably should be celebrating, and as I think we've talked on many occasions, I choose to have this program and this team live in the light and not in the dark, because I think we're on a pathway that is about growing not just this senior men's team, but I think the BFA itself is trying to expand the influence of all our programs, so we have a longer lifespan as it relates to being in these competitions. So when I looked at it with the staff, and we sat down and we sit down with the BFA and discuss it, we're very pleased with the fact that we have now put Bermuda's name in a group of teams that you see on a consistent basis in CONCACAF, in World Cup qualifying, and Gold Cups, and that in itself is a very big step for us. To say that we had those 6 games to compete against those teams, and one for sure, maybe 2, maybe another 2 extra or 3 extra will qualify for the World Cup. We have to be pleased with that, and our most important point is, okay, now what do we do next? Because you don't want to waste the experience, you don't want to waste the financial and the human resource investment that's been made in the program. So that's what we're doing now, is building on what we've seen from basically from when I came in 2023.
Yeah, we a few years ago was in the Gold Cup. We've constantly been a mainstay in the Nations League. We've now been to the final stage of the World Cup qualifiers. In reality, in your planning, strategic planning, and everything, how far are we away from consistently being not at this doorstep in the Gold Cup? Always qualifying in the Nations Club and always being in the final round of the World Cup qualifier. We want to be consistent at that before we make that next step. But how far are we away from that, in your view?
Well, I still think we're a number of steps away, but I think 2026 will provide the next sort of phase of evidence, because you have to work in a world that is evidence based, and it was evident that we were able to, even with the challenges, we had some valleys and we had some nice peaks that we reached during our qualifying period with regards to the Gold Cup and going to the semifinal of qualifying against Honduras. That was a step, and that was evidence that we'd made a step. We then overcome some adversity and come back and get a result away from home, which was another step of evidence in terms of how we've made some progress in Cuba, and then putting us in that final 12. So how I look at it is what that evidence now is, that we have the ability to get there. Now we have to have the ability to remain there. And that is the real difference, is that there is no doubt, as you just used the word a moment ago, the reality. The reality is that we were playing against teams that, are on a consistent basis playing at a much higher level than us individually in professional club football. they are getting more consistent games at the international level. We will soon see ourselves getting that because we're back into the qualifying process, Nations League in September. But I think it's all about making sure the opportunities that are presented to our players are giving them the opportunity to have better environments for themselves. We certainly see I think a real nice mix of players in this group. That we still have some very influential veterans and experienced players that will bring that to the team. But we're seeing the younger players starting to push against that group, which was the ultimate goal. So 2026 will be, a year of seeing what sort of evidence is available to us to say, yeah, we're going to be there on a consistent basis. And you just mentioned Nations League. That is a very important part of our program, and certainly a number of MAs in CONCACAF's program, because as I've said, the Gold Cup is sort of like a Bermuda's World Cup in terms of wanting to be really, really in a good position to qualify for that.
Mm. We saw last week, Friday, the draw for the World Cup. And we saw the group, obviously, the winners of our group, Curacao, got into. Can you give us your impression of the draw itself? And what do you think of the makeup? It stretched quite a bit, Mexico, Canada, and USA.
Yeah.
And some teams are traveling all over the place to play group stage matches, and then, but give us a sense of what you think, how you think the World Cup is laid out.
Yeah, I mean, it's what's so amazing about the game, and we've just witnessed it ourselves as Bermudians, in terms of seeing us come through a Gold Cup semifinal qualifier and then into World Cup qualifying. The game changes all the time, and amazingly, how we go from a World Cup in Qatar, which you literally almost could walk between the venues, like if you really set out and wanted to do that, you probably could, but very condensed, very close, very intimate. And now we have this new format, more teams spread across 3 nations, time zones, north to south, distances, and so you've got a whole different animal that you're dealing with, which is both probably daunting for the teams and the coaches and the federations involved, but probably really exciting for the fans, because they're going to experience a number of different cultures and environments. As the draw rolled out, if I'm speaking specifically about CONCACAF, in terms of the host nations, I'm pleased for them. I think they're happy with their draws. They all got playoff teams coming into it, so they don't know their fourth opposition.
Yes.
But in terms of the other teams that were in there, I know specifically being a Canadian that Jesse is quite happy with Canada's draw. They see the ability to be successful against the Qatars and against the Switzerlands of the world. The big chat in Canada right now is Italy coming out of the playoff group, because there is a large Italian diaspora in Canada. So you see it as this exciting moment, but it also is probably quite a concerning moment for Jesse and the group, because Italy is a very they're a dangerous group when they want to be, so to speak, because they haven't been to the last 3 World Cups. So you can't say they're one of the powerhouses, because they haven't shown that, but they have shown in the past that their mentality, they're a tournament type team. So that can be very, very daunting in that situation. But for US, I think the US has got to be really happy with their group. I look at the teams that they've drawn. I think there is lots of opportunity to win their group, as I see with Canada, and quite frankly, I see the same with Mexico. So in terms of the host nations, I think CONCACAF's in a very good position to see teams go through to the round of 32 and possibly 16 for sure. The other CONCACAF teams, I have a little bit more concern about, specifically the team that qualified out of our group, Curacao. As much as they are a very talented group of players, they're very well coached and very well organized, and they have some very nice passages of play and individuals. They're in tough. You look at that group, and I think you have to say that they're going to struggle against the teams such as the Ivory Coast, Germany, and Ecuador, because all three of those teams are incredibly gifted teams for different
Yes. Yes.
and so I see that as a problem. The Haiti group is interesting because my family is Scottish, background. We moved to Canada, so they're all excited about Scotland being in the World Cup again. But amazingly, the last time when they were in the World Cup, they've now pulled two teams who were in the group that they were in before in Brazil, in Brazil and Haiti, and it's kind of like, oh no, but Haiti again. You look at that group, Brazil, the two teams in that group that would concern me the most from a Haitian point of view is obviously Brazil and Morocco, because I see both of those teams going deep in the tournament. So
right.
Unfortunately, again, a bit of a struggle, and I fear for them in that regards. But once again, it's an opportunity for Haiti to put themselves into a position where they can start to, assist their association in becoming more regular participants there, because they have other struggles, not just football, as we all know. And then you look at Panama again. I fear a little bit for Panama, even though I think Panama can be very dogmatic, and they probably will be when you look at the teams that they're playing against in England, Croatia, and Ghana. Again, very well coached and very well organized, passionate group of players, and I think they'll make it very difficult for those teams. But again, I struggle to see them getting out of the group.
Let me ask you, because we're so close, as we often say, we're 90 minutes away from the East Coast, with all these teams coming to the States and to going to Mexico or even to Canada, the possibility of Bermuda being asked to play a warm-up match. How, if such an offer came about, how difficult is it to get a squad together and be meaningful competition for a team getting ready for the World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's no issues with regards to gathering our squad together, because that's part of our 2026 strategic plan anyway. There are 2 international dates in the first portion of 2026 in March and in June. So those are official FIFA dates. So release clauses and opportunities to bring players in are there. Yes, we'd have to again look at the negotiation factor with some of our players playing with clubs that don't stop in those international dates. But I think one of our key objectives in 2026 is to make sure that our players, club teams, and club technical staffs know how important those dates are for us as a nation going into the Nations League in September, October, and November. And pre-World Cup, there are certainly going to be opportunities that present themselves. And part of our planning right now is having those discussions. Is exactly what does that look like? Do we get together and have a preparatory camp outside of Bermuda? Is it an opportunity or for a team to come to Bermuda? That's all part of our discussions and planning for 2026, which are taking place basically right now. So, but yeah, no, the goal for us is to make sure that we play in both windows in March and June. We also have the U20 qualifiers at the end of February, which is an important component to the pathway program for players who are going to get more international games and hopefully push against our senior team. So that's an important date for us on the male side of the program. And then, before you know it, it'll be September. I don't like to wish time away, but we're always excited about getting back into competition. And the Nations League this year is slightly different because FIFA has changed the international date structure. So September and October windows are going to be combined as one window. So it'll be a longer period of time with more games.
Wow. Oh, wow.
And then November, it will be a normal window. And the strategy and the objective and really the rationale behind that is to give players more rest time prior to the first window in September when they get back into club football. But it's also to help international teams spend a little bit more time preparing together and not have the players having to travel in and out between the 3 windows. Now it's just 2 windows, but the same time period. So, but to go back to your original question, we would love to be able to offer ourselves off to play against any of the teams we're preparing for 2026, and that has happened in the past with a number of teams. It's all about what their planning to is. What is their goals, objectives, and strategy in terms of prepping. The second window in June bumps right up against the start of the World Cup, right? So that's a preparatory period for those teams also. So our close proximity to the East Coast helps us. But also, we also will want to make sure that we're making the right selections for ourselves in terms of opponents based in CONCACAF. Very happy for all of these teams going to the World Cup, but we also have to look after Bermuda, and this year is obviously September, October, November, Nations League, Group B, and qualifying for the 27 World Cup.
Yeah. Okay, so over the next 4 years, what are the crucial things Bermuda football need to improve just to be consistent? So what are the things over the next 4 years that we need to work on to be consistent?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, it's about the environments these players live and exist in. That's just that is that's the raw reality. The better environments these players are in, the better opportunities for them to advance, and with them advancing, it provides us with a better opportunity to select better players and ultimately, hopefully, have better results. The actions that the BFA are taking right now with the academy program and Jake Littlejohn here as a talent coach for FIFA, who's running these programs. It is a really, really important piece of the puzzle because it's setting a standard. And there's lots of other players domestically currently on the youth side, sort of those under 15 players that hopefully looked at what was going on with the senior team and they want to emulate that. Okay. And so how do they emulate that? They have to get into the best environments possible. And that really is the bottom line. And that consistency factor, with the changes to youth football at the international level, there's an under 17 World Cup every year now, which takes place in Doha, Qatar. So every team has to prepare every year to put a team forward in that qualification process. That is actually a very, very important part of the Bermudian national team program's strategy, because now you're getting more, you just used the word consistency. We've constantly got to be working on those under 15s, prepping them for that under 17 qualifying period in CONCACAF. Ultimately, our goal is we'd love to see Bermuda qualify for an under 17 World Cup one day, because that again is a statement that we're making progress. All of this has to be sort of what I would say is put together as a full package of not just the BFA, but the participants, the coaches, the community of football who wants to raise the standards at any moment they can at all levels. And I work on the male gender of the program, but that goes with the female side of our program too. We've got our women in our World Cup qualifying right now. They just had a win and a loss in their first round and be coming back in March. That is a community of football, and when everybody is working together in that, as much as it sounds like a fantasy and a little bit more of a dream, that is actually the reality. Is this integration of people, activities, players, emulation, goals, passion, all of those things. Once they start to come together as a stronger entity, you'll see much more successful progress. But we have to be patient. There's no doubt about that. But we also have to be critical thinkers and make some very, very big decisions. And that's not just saying, like the BFA, because I think the BFA is making some very critical, big decisions, and they've proven that. But that it's also the community of football have to do that too. What's important to them? What are we doing for the next generation of players? Where can we create the best environments for these players? How can we put them in environments that's given them the best opportunity? Because there's no doubt, Earl, that Bermuda wants success. It's been proven. They can be very tough at times on themselves and their teams, but that shows that they care. So that's one of the boxes that you can tick.
Sure. we've constantly had discussions about Bermuda's identity of football, um, and it would appear that we whoever the coach is or whatever age group or whatever have a different system to play. Uh, can you identify what Bermuda's footballers' strengths are as far as team orientated? Because we've seen this, and I've got a question about the same thing I'm talking about now. Why we see maybe the senior team playing one way, and then we see the under 20s playing another way, we see the under 17s playing another
Yep.
way. But we don't have a true identity of Bermuda football. What would you say about something of that nature?
Well, I think you make a very good point, and that's one of the. I think that's one of the goals for us is to start to create a pathway of game modeling. I'll call it. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, look, there's no secrets in football, as you well know. With technology and all this, people can see how teams play all the time. Myself and my staff, from the senior point of view, we pretty much played a very strict 4-2-3-1 formation. But take the formation out of it for a moment, because formation is just about numbers. It's the personalities and the situations that those formations have to deliver to. And when you look at Bermudian football, we definitely would like to see that we have a transition between, say, the U20s into that sort of every 2 years under 23 group and into the senior group. We did that with the 23s this year. And we're discussing with the 20s right now how we as a senior group can assist that group, because it's not easy. There's lots going on. The coaches and the players have different realities to deal with, just like the senior team. So we've got some like-minded things that we can share. So that in itself is part of our plan and part of what we want to do. As you get lower into the age groups, it is my personal opinion that you can't be too stringent with the players as it relates to, say, a philosophy or a formation, because things may change. So you need to make sure that they are aware of the different situations and the different scenarios that are presented in different formations and different realities. And that's part of youth development. So that 13 to 16 sort of idea, if they want to play one way, I'm completely in support of that, because you also want to show them another way. So when they do get to that level where it's more about the success and the results driven type atmospheres, they're able to be flexible in that regard. As it relates to your key question, which is what is a Bermudian football, sort of, what is our look or what is our strategy? For the time that I've spent here, it's very obvious that Bermudians have a relationship with the ball. They have a relationship with sort of what I would say is that individual technical influence in a game. And as you saw, what we've tried to do in the past is we've tried to enhance that in trying to control and manipulate possession as much as we can, because we are not a physical group of people. Okay, that we have people who can fight, and we have people that will always compete. But if you look at the structures of the players and you look at teams that we play against, we are not one of those types of teams, and it's very difficult for us to compete in that sort of arena. So if you take on other teams in the world and try and mirror their image in what they're doing, who have the same sort of makeup we do, it's all about making sure that we keep the ball away from those teams so we can be successful in that regard. So I believe we are a ball-oriented group of people who like to control the tempo of the game, but we also have a fast transitional type of group that can go quick if they want. So for me, it's more about ownership. It's more about controlling play and being very devastating in the final third. That's kind of sort of how we look at it. I don't see us being a physical group that's going to. We may press, but we are not a group that can high press all the time. We are not a group that can physically challenge teams in that situation, because we just don't have the makeup to do it.
Mm-hmm. When we look at the current group of players in the squad, I'm talking the nucleus of the squad.
Yeah.
over these last 3 windows. We have what we would consider an aging team. They've been serving Bermuda for a very long time. Still young, but in football terms, aged. Um, how worrying is it that we there's a possibility within the next year we can lose maybe 4 or 5 or 6 players um, that have been important with the program for so long, that we now have to inject some new life in there and almost start from, I wouldn't say from zero, but you understand what I'm saying, where
Oh,
you're,
yeah, absolutely. No, no.
yeah.
And it's a good question. It's a great question because, that's one of the things that is very important for us and was from the very beginning when I came in is we were even older when I came in. The average age of our squad last year was 26.5.
Mhm.
And we used last year 38 players who were either in camp or on pitch. The average CONCACAF team that qualifies for any tournament, whether it be Gold Cup or World Cup, they use anywhere between 35 and 42 players
Mhm.
over a qualifying period. And when
Yeah.
they hit the competition, they're 27, between 27 and 28 years old on average for the
Mhm.
team. So when we do our math and look at where we had, that's why we have on a consistent basis always had some younger players in our squad to be part of the process of transitioning. And I would say that 25 to 26 at the annual year, this is a year you'll see more transition than you saw between 24 and 25, because the core group that was involved with the team at that time, very experienced, some had been to Gold Cups, had seen a lot of play at a lot of different levels, professionally and domestically. And they were the ones that you needed to sort of hang your hat on, because they were the ones who were going to provide you with that opportunity to be successful in those games. But you always had a bottom part of that group that was pushing against it to keep them honest. And as you've seen, the goal for us is to try not to have valleys in
Mhm.
our development pathway, but just small bumps, right? So we don't want to start from the beginning going into, say, the Nations League qualifying in 26. So that's why you wanted to make sure that your squad never sort of got over that sort of 27 age, because then you are in trouble. Because I see some very very positive signs with our younger players that have been around us in squad. Not a lot of them have played matches for us yet. They've played small amounts, but they had the ability to do that. So we're very confident, very pleased that I think our transition in 26 is going to be very positive, and you're going to see a lot of those younger players come of age. As it relates to the players who have had great service, players have to display the ability to contribute and be part of something. And if those players continue to do that and show interest and a real commitment to what we're doing, then they have as much a chance as anybody and will be involved, because you need a fine balance. There's no
Mhm.
doubt that players help each other at all times. Younger players motivate older players. Older players help educate younger players. If you have all young, well, then you have to expect you're going to have some very deep valleys before you have success. If you can balance that out, and that's what the critical point in CONCACAF is, a lot of the teams in CONCACAF over the years will go through something what we just did, and then they'll start all over again. And that is what you try to avoid, because then you have to build the whole thing back up. So that's what we've tried to balance out whenever we've had the squads together, from a youth versus an experience point of view. But those players who have been around for those years have been incredible servants to Bermuda, and as I said, will continue to be so if they show the ability to compete at this level and contribute. And as I say, we need people committed to what our thought process is, what our objectives are, and what our attitude is towards a year that will bring us into another qualifying period in September, November, October.
Sure. I remember when you had joined the football show one recently, we talked about uh, having opportunities for coaches in our domestic league working alongside the program. Now with this gap, this window coming up in, you say, March and June, a little more time. Is there an opportunity to have some of the coaches come in and just, I guess, oversee or watch what's going on at the national, just to get some more pointers? I know we can all go and pass a course as a coach, but
100%.
but being involved in it practically, I think that's where it would help the local brand of football as well. So is there an opportunity to see a local coach involved, possibly not necessarily on the bench, but in the program in the near future?
The quick answer is yes. The bigger comment is, you just by you saying the domestic based coach and their opportunity. I think you talked about courses and the licensing of coaches, which is a very, very important part. And I think that you have to, there's an attitude you have to make, because one thing that the BFA has done, and Maurice is very involved in the coach education program within CONCACAF and within FIFA. And that's something that people don't see behind the scenes, what the BFA is trying to achieve with all of their coach development programming. This is, and if a coach is not involved in that program, they are missing out. So when there's an opportunity to be involved in those courses, in those licensing programs, every coach in Bermuda should do everything they can to be involved in that. It doesn't prove that they're a good coach or a bad coach. It's like a lawyer, Earl. There's bad ones, there's good ones. They all had to go to the bar. And, and so it's about the experience, and also coming in there, and when Maurice runs the coach development programming, it's also about them coming together as a group of coaches and seeing that they all have some of the same challenges, some of the same issues, and some of the same goals. And as a group, I go back to my comment about us all working together rather than in isolation, which is very, very important. That is going to elevate them, and they're going to then change the environments they're coaching in the domestic game. Because let's be honest, we need to raise the standards in the domestic game. You can't argue that. And it has to go to another level. And I think there's people in Bermuda that want to do that. And so there has to be a system in place to do that. And I think Maurice and the BFA, and I think all coaches, whenever there's that opportunity there, you need to be involved. There shouldn't be an excuse. There should be everything you can to get involved in that program, whatever that may be. Going to the core of your question is, yes, we feel strongly. I feel strongly about organic growth. That's why, for example, when I took the job, I didn't bring anybody with me. And that's why I wanted to have Bermudian-based coaches involved, in which we have. Now going into this cycle, it's the same idea going. We'll review what we're doing. We definitely, in our windows in 2026, we will have coaches around what we're doing. There's no doubt we'll do that. They may not be part of the intimate staff, but they will be there. And it is our plan to be also looking at, prior to the window, whatever it may be, or it could be after the window, is to gather the coaches together to visit with them and work with them and show them what's about to happen or what did happen. That's all about the timing factor, right? So they see, okay, guys, you're going to watch these games coming up in this window. This is how we prepared. Here's our group. This is how it's going to look. This is what the week looks like, and what the core objectives are, and all of the details, so that they can take away and decide if they want to apply it in their own environments. Because football, people are using everybody's stuff all the time, right? Anytime I see a coach who wants to hide their stuff, I see someone who's just scared about sharing and growing, right? So we need to, and we've always been a very open book, and we will continue to do that. So that has to be part of it. But I will say this: there is accountability for that too, because you need to commit to doing that type of thing. So when the BFA has had coursing or coach education issues or opportunities, a lot of times there's not a great turnout, right? And so they have to have the responsibility as a coach too to want to be involved in this. Because if you're just going to stand on the sidelines and chuck stones, then I'll put my hands up. We can't help you. But if you want to be part of something, there's going to be opportunities to do that. There's no doubt.
Sure. I have a question from a viewer. As a small nation in size, why do you think we play a system of 4-2-3-1? It suits Bermuda instead of a 5-4-1 to have more numbers around the ball to help the press and
Good question.
to be hard to beat first.
Yeah, no, good question. These are formational discussions. I firmly, my view is as we relate to how we play in a formation. The reason we look at 4-2-3-1 is that it is. I consider it to be a north-south formation, meaning when you go in attack, you can have numbers around the ball and more numbers in the attacking third. But if you don't have the ball, you can also create numbers behind it very quickly. So it's very transitional. It also plays into some of our best qualities, and that is our wide players. If there's one area of the game that I don't worry about very much when I'm thinking about squads in Bermuda, is our wide players. We do have a little bit of a gap in our fullback area right now in terms of who's coming through. We have ones we like now, but who's coming through, because we do obviously some research. But in terms of that formation also gives us that fluidity on the wide areas where I think we're very, very strong, and our numbers show that all the time. It also is a belief system for me too, and that is that we were playing at another level in September, October, November. There's no doubt about that. That's as real. We're talking another level of player. You just have to look at the team sheets and see where these players play versus where we were. And we made some very strong decisions about that. What are we going to get out of this period of time that is going to help the long-term success of the program and Bermuda? And was it to sit down and sit in a block of 6 or 7 and just try and deny teams? Well, the quality that we played against, I'm not sure that would have worked, in my personal opinion. But I also don't think it was going to help us as a football nation in terms of creating a thought process, no fear, wanting to play at a certain level, at a certain time against a certain opponent. And I think that in itself also was part of why we chose to play that way. And I'll have and will have and did have critiques on that, and that's fine. But we looked at our squad. We looked at what our objectives were. We looked at what we want to do long term for this program beyond when I will be here, is to make sure there's foundational pieces in place that you can build on. Because as you saw by other smaller nations around the world, given the opportunity, a crack in the door, maybe we push it open.
Yeah. I got to ask this question. When you would have first shown interest in this job, taking over Bermuda, you would have had heard or seen or just, had this impression of Bermuda football. Since you've been on island and been, over the few years that you've been in charge, has any of your impressions or thoughts changed on what you thought it was coming into the job?
Good question, Earl. Well, when I first took the job, I was really excited, and still excited. I'm not saying I'm not excited. I was really excited in the beginning because I looked at it deeply, spoke with the president, spoke with the people involved, and looked at it historically, looked at the group, and I saw an opportunity to. I like projects. If you want to know Michael Findlay is all about projects. It's trying to be better every time we come in and putting in foundational pieces and getting us to the next level. That's kind of my makeup. And I saw that in Bermuda. There was no doubt about that. And I also saw the opportunity to change, I think, a thought process. My very first meeting with the players, and people will tell you, I always have a story around our windows and our games. There's something that we follow, and I think I've mentioned this before. But the one I used in the very first camp in September 2023, the overarching message of the camp was to start thinking differently. And if there's one area of being the national team coach of Bermuda, which continues to be a great honor, is I'm not sure yet we have completely changed the way we think. I think the mentality is one of our greatest challenges as a national team. I look at players and I see talent, raw talent. I see opportunity. I see a large amount of them committed, but at times we struggle with the mentality of consistency, of living that high performance lifestyle to the best of their ability, given all of the challenges that Bermudians have as like other MAs. This is not easy, Earl. I want to make it clear to the viewers. It is not easy to be a Bermudian national team player. It's an honor, and every one of them love to be here every time they come in. But it's a challenge from their personal life, their professional life, the travel, university conflicts. I can name so many different things that are different than other national teams. And so, viewers and fans have to understand it's a difficult situation to be that. But that doesn't mean we also can't think like those teams, right? I want our teams to think like Germany. I want us to think like Mexico. I want us to think like, other teams that are in World Cups, because the first challenge is our mentality. And I think if I was going to say, I'm still not there yet. We're close. We made amazing strides, I think, in terms of what we're doing. And you have to compliment and celebrate the people behind the scenes that people don't see, from our support system, management, all of the national team staff and the BFA itself. Guys don't see that on a daily basis. They just judge what happens on the pitch, right? So we made massive strides in that regard. But if I was going to peg one thing, it's the mentality.
Yeah. And let me ask you, do you think there's room for MAs that don't have a professional league as opposed to MAs that do? Because you mentioned you think like Germany, think like Mexico, but the resources that those countries have, because they have professional leagues, the sky's the limit for them. But when you look at most of the CONCACAF region, especially the lower teams or lower MAs that don't have professional leagues, is there room for somewhere for them to kind of grow together and then take on the bigger nations? Only because hypothetically, you get a team like Grenada or Antigua, or that don't have these professional things, that they're going to continue to struggle, and it's going to be a one hit and miss kind of thing. We're kind of unique that we've got these guys that are abroad. Majority of the team is abroad playing football, but just somewhere where, I guess, I wouldn't say comfortable to be playing, but just on a more consistent basis. Do you think there's room for that?
Well, yeah, I think the word you just said there is consistency. There's actually a very good article, by the way, in an online paper. It's called The Athletic. I'm sure you know it. And there was a great article. I think it was yesterday. I was reading it on my way here, and it was talking about the Jamaican club called Mount Pleasant.
Yes.
I really, really encourage people to read that article if you have access to The Athletic. It talks about the quality and potential that the Caribbean has. Now, remembering, and so you don't get a call from every geography teacher in.
Yes.
Okay, we are not part of the Caribbean. We are part of North America. I know that. In terms of how we work, we are considered, working in that space. Okay, so to all you geography teachers out there, I'm not telling all the players. But it's a really interesting article, because I think there is power in that, and that's where the CFU, the Caribbean Football Union, has to start thinking about how they can support and help deliver on some of this potential. There's no doubt, Earl, nations like us, we're exporters. Okay, let's be perfectly frank. We're exporters. Okay, so let's not kid ourselves. Okay, and so that's why it's so important what we're doing at the under 17 level, right? Because that's where you're setting standards. That's where you're setting, and those standards are both technical, tactical, and emotional. Going to my high performance lifestyle idea, and then it's about, let's put them on the stage and see where we can put them. Whether that be through university programming in the United States, whether that be through through football schooling in the UK or professional club in the UK. And I say that, excuse me, I say that first because of the relationship with the UK. But guess what? There's other countries in the world. And the game, with the expansion of how FIFA is trying to move the game globally, there's going to be opportunities in another regions. And it's about taking that opportunity when it's presented to you. So for us, it's about trying to gather as much opportunity to be recognized and also successful as exporters. And the CFU and the Caribbean areas has enormous talent. It's just has, in some ways, it hasn't been unified, as you just said. I think it's a great word, in some capacity, that it can be then uploaded into the rest of the world's eyes, and that's a huge challenge. They've tried before. I mean, they've tried professional leagues in the Caribbean before with no success. There are some professional leagues there. Your Jamaicas, your Trinidad's of the world do have them, but at the end of the day, it comes down to making sure that there is some form of foundation and launch pad for these players to take that opportunity that's presented to them. Because at the end of the day, it does lie also with those players' attitude and motivation to put themselves in the best possible environment they can. Sure. And that comes with sacrifice too. So
sure.
But I can tell you right now, traveling the world, involved with football, I see, and you'll have coaches and players who have traveled with travel teams and done all sorts of stuff from Bermuda. There's not a lot of difference between the 13 and the 16-year-old in every country around the world. It's just the influence and the environment they're in. So, right. That tells you what your opportunities present. But we can't kid ourselves that we think we can only just do it here. We need to be very expansive. As I say, we need to look at being exporters. But in terms of what we're doing in our domestic game here, it's all about making sure that the environments are as professional as possible, standards are in place and they're consistent, and there is a player first focus on what you're doing. And yes, everybody wants to win a football match. That's the only reason we play at the end of the game. At the end of the day, but we also have to look at what every decision we are making, is it to the benefit of that player, male or female.
Well, I know you're here for your strategic meetings with the association, planning over the next cycle. So I want to wish you all the best and season's greetings to you and your family. Thank you for joining. We will get back with you in the new year, obviously, as things start to be put in place for March, because realistically it's just around the corner, because we were talking about September how long ago, and it's going September, October, and November going.
It's amazing how quickly things, and I say this to the players, I say, guys, the ball doesn't stop rolling, and the reality is, before you know it, we'll be standing somewhere with a group in September, and we're 5 games away for qualifying from a Gold Cup. So that's why the work has to be put in now. We're excited about it. Really pleased with the steps that the association has made, the people around it, and the players. Because at the end of the day, those are the ones who have been, putting in the work and the sacrifice. And so, yeah, great. It's again, 2026 is a great football year for everybody. World Cups, U20s for Bermuda, Nations League for Bermuda, Women's World Cup for Bermuda. It's a great year to be in football. So wishing happy holidays to everybody in Bermuda. Please be safe and spend some time with your loved ones. And we look forward to 2026.
All right, Mr. Findlay, thank you very much for joining. All the best, and we'll be talking to you sometime soon.
Always good to talk to you, Earl.
All righty. Have a good day. Okay.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.